A little over 7 years ago, Paradox released Cities Skylines 1. With it came the ability to zone our cities with low-density residential, high-density residential, commercial, office, and industrial in the base game. With the addition of expansion packs for Cities Skylines 1, we eventually got access to specialized districts that allowed us to specialize districts into like leisure, tourism, and organic districts for commercial, high-tech offices for office zones, and self-sustaining residential buildings, among others, for the duration of the series. However, the workshop still exploded with custom assets suggesting that players always wanted more, eventually resulting in the popularized plop asset gameplay, allowing players to tailor the look of their cities down to the city block. And I think in Cities Skylines 2, Paradox will deliver on offering players more options, and I want to discuss that today. For those that are new or just discovering my channel, my name is Michael, and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming and City Builders. This is the YouTube channel where I build worlds, cities, and share my thoughts on video games in the city builder gaming space. When I was first learning about Cities Skylines 2, one of the things that got me most excited was the different zoning types added into the game. With the base game of Cities Skylines 2, we are getting a smattering of different zoning types, including low-density residential, row house residential, medium density, high density, mixed use medium density residential with commercial, low income high density, low density commercial, high density commercial, low density office, high density office, and industrial zones. Now, I'm not going to recap on what each of these zones mean, only because there are a ton of other videos that will do it better, but what I want to discuss is how this zoning will evolve in the future and speculate on what future DLC may be offering in the franchise. So in order to get into that discussion, I just also wanted to mention that it is nice that we get a more advanced demand bar that finally shows us office demand. No more needing to download mods or guesstimate what the office demand is in relation to our industrial and educational levels. So I'm relieved to see that office demand get its own dedicated demand bar. But the Paradox Colossal Order team didn't just stop there. They took it one step further, which went above and beyond what I was expecting, and they added in demand bars based on the different residential zonings that they offer. If we want to talk about breaking barriers and pushing boundaries, we have to look no further than the demand meters for the different kinds of residential zonings, as it is reflective of what we would see in real life. Now, don't get me wrong, although I do think that it is slightly reductive to attach housing demands to different kinds of households, this is a game, and to pursue that kind of realism would likely result in a delayed game. In saying that, I think I like how the new demand bars work because I think it will encourage players to upzone more in their cities, which is reflective of real life, and it also forces players to plan out their cities to fit in all kinds of different housing, creating more housing diversity, which is something that real life cities really fail to do today, in my opinion. Anyways, all personal feelings aside, like with that said, and I have mentioned this in previous videos, but I think that sometimes Colossal Order executes on genius concepts very well without completing the vision. And what do I mean by that in this context? Well, I honestly think that there are a few different zone types that are missing. Specifically, I am talking about medium density commercial and medium density office. Like, the Cities Skylines 2 team went through the trouble of establishing that there was such a thing as medium density in the residential zoning, and I don't get why they would stop at just the residential zoning, as medium density commercial and offices do exist. They gave us really nice gradual increases in density for our residential zones, but I don't get why they wouldn't do this for our commercial and office buildings. It seems like players will have to choose between flanking their medium density residential with fast food drive-thrus or skyscrapers. Okay, that was a little bit hyperbolic, but you know exactly what I mean here. I feel like the Colossal Order team just didn't follow through completely on the vision, with the omission of medium density commercial and office buildings at the very least. Back in Cities Skylines 1, medium density anything was nearly non-existent. We either had to go with low density or high density and then supply our own medium density through workshop assets. Based on what's offered on the workshop alone, I think that it makes total sense that Colossal Order would add in new zoning types based on what gets downloaded the most and for the most used zoning type in the game. I would like to see medium density commercial and office buildings added into the Cities Skylines 2 franchise, but the more I think about it, the more I think that it might be a better way to introduce medium density office and commercial buildings into the mix through mixed use buildings. And what do I mean by that? Well, if Colossal Order felt like adding in standalone medium density commercial and office buildings would overwhelm players, then I propose adding in commercial and office mixed use buildings for medium and high densities. Some of the most lively city centers are populated with medium density commercial and office mixed use buildings, and I could really see players being satisfied with getting that gradual increase in density with their office and commercial buildings with commercial/office mixed-use buildings. So again, I'm talking about commercial/office mixed-use buildings, not commercial/residential or office/residential mixed-use buildings, which I also think could be viable as well as something to add in to the franchise. And speaking of mixed-use buildings, I actually think that Colossal Order really opened a can of worms on that one in a way. So firstly, the commercial/residential mixed-use zoning blew me away when it was announced at Cities Skylines 2. However, when I look on the official website, it says that this type of zoning is designated to answer a low commercial demand and a medium density residential demand. Again, I feel like Colossal Order isn't completing the vision on the mixed-use zoning we are given, as some of the tallest residential structures in cities across the world are actually mixed-use residential themselves, making them high density. So in the game, we're only given that commercial/residential, medium residential density, whereas like in real life, like I just mentioned, some of the tallest residential structures are actually mixed use, so that would make them a commercial/high density residential mix. To put it bluntly, like where is the commercial/residential mixed use high density zoning if what we are given is only answering for a medium density residential demand? Like I get how a high density version of this would only answer a low density commercial demand, but what about using this type of zoning for a high density residential demand like we see in real world cities, or even a high density office demand, because even the tallest office buildings are technically mixed use. So if Cities Skylines 2 really wanted to get crazy with their mixed use zones, I would suggest adding in some sort of a slider menu that allows the player to adjust the ratio of zone usage before they paint in the zone. That way, players can actually micromanage how much residential and commercial that particular mixed-use zone applies per square. Of course, this would demand a wide range of assets to be made, but if Colossal Order restricted the mixed-use ratios, they could also reduce the amount of new assets they would need to make in order to keep the game running fairly smoothly. So for example, if they restricted the ratios to only be like a 50-50 or a 30-70, then you don't have to make so many different versions of the asset to reflect that mixed use. I hope I'm making sense there with that idea. Going forward with this franchise, I think that both the players and Colossal Order are underestimating the need to sprawl a city across a map, especially with low density residential demand being its own separate demand bar. I do think that this forces both the developers and the players' hands in planning their cities smarter, and I can see more mixed use options being needed, not wanted, but actually needed in order to play smarter, as that low density residential demand continues to remain present. I mean, we see it already in the influencer playthroughs that are all over YouTube, right? But I want to know what you have to think about the zoning types offered in Cities Skylines 2. Do you think that we need more zoning options to reflect a medium density for commercial and office zones? Do you think that more mixed-use zone types will be needed to help players plan their cities smarter? Or are maps large enough to handle all of that sprawl? Comment below with your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to keep up with my channel, then feel free to like this video and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you again for watching Sovereign Gaming in City Builders, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.